There comes a moment in every life when clinging becomes too heavy, when holding on to what no longer serves us begins to suffocate the soul. In that sacred moment, when you finally decide to let go, something remarkable begins to unfold. The universe, which you once believed to be indifferent, starts to move. Not against you, but with you, because to let go is not to give up. To let go is to align, it is to release the illusion of control, and in doing so, awaken the deep psychic forces within that have waited patiently for your surrender. And when you truly let, the universe always responds with synchronicity. When you finally make the conscious decision to let go of a person, a desire, a past event, or even a version of yourself, you step into a profoundly sacred process. It is not merely the act of moving on, it is the act of waking up. Letting go is not a weakness. It is a deliberate act of inner strength. It is the soul's recognition that what you are clinging to is no longer aligned with your truth. You begin to see that the tighter you grip what's fading, the more you suffocate your own growth. Carl Jung taught us that the path to self-realization is not paved with control but with surrender. The more you resist the natural flow of life, the more fragmented your psyche becomes. Letting go invites a reintegration. When you release what no longer serves you, the self, the deeper, eternal self beyond ego, trauma, and societal identity, begins to steer. It is like peeling away layers of dust from a forgotten mirror. You begin to catch glimpses of your authentic nature, who you were before the world told you who to be. The old narratives, fears, and limiting beliefs lose their grip. What emerges is not a new you, but the real you, the one who was always buried beneath attachments and illusions. This awakening is rarely loud. It does not come with fireworks or applause. It is quiet but undeniable. You begin to feel lighter, not because life has become easier, but because you have stopped carrying what was never truly yours to bear. You no longer chase validation because you no longer feel incomplete. You no longer fear solitude because you are finally at home with yourself. The decision to let go becomes a portal, not to emptiness, but to clarity. You start to sense a new kind of guidance, an inner compass that had been waiting for the noise to die down. Your intuition sharpens. Your dreams become more vivid. Your body feels more alive. You are no longer a puppet of unconscious forces. You become the conscious architect of your own becoming. And in that moment, where you choose truth over comfort, freedom over familiarity, the self awakens, not as something you achieve, but as something you remember, something you return to. This is the great paradox of letting go. What feels like loss on the surface is actually a reunion with your deepest self. It is a death, yes, but only of illusions. What survives is what's real. What endures is what was always meant to live. When you let go, truly let go, not with bitterness, but with openness and trust, something extraordinary begins to happen. The world around you, once seemingly chaotic and random, begins to move in patterns. Events align. Opportunities appear. People cross your path in precisely the moment they're needed. You begin to experience what Carl Jung called synchronicity, the meaningful coincidence that defies logic, yet speaks directly to your soul. It is as if the universe, previously silent or even indifferent, begins to speak in symbols and signs. You notice the book that shows up exactly when you've been grappling with a question. A conversation overheard in passing offers the insight you've been searching for. Numbers repeat. Dreams become prophetic. The timing of events starts to feel too precise to be accidental. These are not just coincidences, they are expressions of an inner shift. When you let go, you release your grip on rigid expectations, on the false sense that you must control every outcome, and in doing so, you invite the unconscious to surface. You allow the deeper layers of your psyche to communicate not only within, but with the world around you. Your outer reality begins to reflect your inner transformation. Jung believed that synchronicity is evidence that we are part of a greater order, an invisible web that connects all things. When you let go of ego-driven pursuits, and begin to live in alignment with your deeper self, you become attuned to this hidden order. What once seemed random now carries profound meaning. You begin to live not from the mind alone, but from the soul. In this state, the world becomes a kind of dreamscape. Every encounter, every delay, every unexpected turn holds potential significance. Life is no longer something that happens to you. It is something that communicates with you. But you must be awake to see it. Synchronicity doesn't arise through force. It cannot be summoned like a trick. It arrives naturally when you are in harmony with yourself and your path. It is the universe's way of affirming you are on the right track. It may not always show you the destination, but it will always point to the next step. And so, in letting go of control, of timelines, of needing to know, what you gain is connection. A deep, almost mystical sense that life is not just occurring, it is unfolding with you. You are no longer lost in chaos. You are part of a cosmic rhythm. This is the hidden gift of surrender. The veil thins, and the universe begins to whisper. And once you hear its voice, you can never go back to believing that life is random again. There is a part of you that you've buried, maybe without even knowing it. It's the part you were told much too strange, too dark, too painful. The part that didn't fit the image you believed you had to maintain. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the hidden, repressed side of the psyche that holds everything you've dissoned in order to survive in the world. When you cling to old patterns, unhealthy attachments, or identities that no longer serve you, you are often trying to avoid this shadow. You think that by controlling your circumstances, by forcing outcomes, staying in familiar roles, maintaining appearances, you can keep the darkness at bay. But the shadow doesn't disappear. It waits. And the more you resist it, the more power it gains over your life. It shows up as self-sabotage, as fear disguised as logic, as jealousy, guilt, shame, or unexplained anxiety. It whispers to you in the quiet moments, making you doubt your worth, your dreams, your path. And because it lives in the unconscious, it manipulates your reality from behind the scenes, until you bring it into the light. Letting go is the moment the grip of the shadow begins to loosen. Because when you surrender what you've been clinging to, whether it's a toxic relationship, an outdated belief, or the illusion of control, you begin to see what was hiding beneath the surface all along. You start to recognize that your fears weren't just about losing something external. They were rooted in a deeper fear of confronting who you truly are, including the parts you've tried to deny. And yet, in that confrontation, you discover a profound paradox. The shadow only has power over you as long as you avoid it. When you turn toward it with awareness and compassion, it begins to transform. What once terrified you begins to teach you. The pain you buried becomes wisdom. The anger becomes fuel for change. The shame becomes a gateway to authenticity. The act of letting go creates the psychic space for this alchemy to take place. You're no longer feeding the shadow with repression and fear. You're engaging it with courage and curiosity. And as a result, its grip weakens. The universe responds to this inner shift not by punishing you, but by liberating you. You start to attract different people, different experiences. Ones that mirror your growing wholeness rather than your woundedness. You stop living in cycles of repetition and start living in cycles of evolution. This is not about becoming perfect or pure. It is about becoming whole. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It carries the very aspects of yourself that, once integrated, will make you powerful, grounded, and free. So when you let go, the shadow loses its power, not because it disappears, but because it is finally seen, acknowledged, and embraced. You stop running from yourself, and in doing so, you reclaim the energy, the clarity, and the depth that were always yours to begin with. There is a profound shift that occurs when you let go, an invisible turning of the inner tide. What was once stagnant begins to flow. What was heavy begins to lift, and in the space that opens, a new kind of energy begins to rise, not chaotic or forced, but clean, vital, and unmistakably alive. You may not even notice it at first. It may begin as a subtle lightness in your chest, a quiet clarity in your thoughts, or a sudden desire to create, to move, to explore. But make no mistake, this is not coincidence. It is the energetic consequence of release. When you let go of something that no longer serves your evolution, be it an old relationship, a painful memory, a role you've outgrown, or a belief that has kept you small, you also release the psychic energy that was bound to it. That energy, which had been looping endlessly through fear, resentment, overthinking, or regret, is now free. You begin to reclaim yourself. In Jungian terms, this is the return of libido, not just in the narrow sexual sense, but as the broader life force that animates your being. This energy had been trapped in the past, held hostage by unresolved emotions, repressed desires, and unconscious attachments. But now it begins to circulate again. And as it does, it seeks new channels of expression. You may feel drawn to things you had long forgotten. Writing, dancing, building, connecting, dreaming. You may suddenly find the strength to change careers, to speak your truth, to love without fear. This is not magic. It is the psyche healing itself. The energy that was once frozen is now alive again, and it is moving toward what is real, meaningful, and nourishing. Letting go doesn't just free you emotionally. It revitalizes you existentially. The fatigue that came from pretending, from holding on, from resisting the inevitable begins to dissolve. In its place comes vitality. Not the adrenaline rush of escapism, but the slow burning fire of alignment. You begin to operate from authenticity rather than effort. Things that used to drain you no longer have power over you, and things that used to feel impossible now seem not only possible but natural. This is the energy of being in flow, not because life has become easier, but because you are no longer working against yourself. This new energy is also magnetic. Others feel it, even if they can't name it. You begin to attract people and opportunities that resonate with your true vibration. You are no longer signaling desperation or avoidance. You are emitting presence, clarity, and quiet strength, and perhaps most importantly, this energy sustains itself. Because it doesn't come from the outside, it comes from within. It is yours, reclaimed from all the places you had scattered it while trying to control, please, perform, or survive. So yes, letting go can feel like a death. But in that death, something extraordinary is born: your real power. Not the power to dominate, but the power to be deeply, unwaveringly yourself. And that power, once awakened, moves through your life like a current, feeling not just change but transformation. When you make the decision to let go, not out of defeat, but out of trust, you open a space in your life that destiny has been waiting to enter. It is often only in the absence of the noise, the struggle, the clinging, that you begin to hear the quiet voice of purpose that has been calling to you all along. Destiny does not shout. It waits in silence. It lives beneath the layers of conditioning, expectations, and fear. And as long as you are tightly gripping what is familiar, be it a job, a relationship, a version of yourself, or a path chosen for you by others, there is no room for it to emerge. But when you release that grip, when you finally trust the process enough to let go, you signal to the unconscious, I am ready, and the unconscious responds. Carl Jung believed that each person carries within them a blueprint, a unique pattern of wholeness he called the self. Destiny is not something outside of you, written in the stars, far removed from your choices. It is the unfolding of that inner pattern. It is your psyche's natural direction toward individuation, toward becoming whole. But this unfolding can only happen when you stop interfering with it. Letting go is the surrender of interference. It is saying no to the ego's rigid plan, and yes to the soul's deeper pull. And once that surrender takes place, life begins to guide you, not with a clear map, but with a magnetic pull. You find yourself drawn to certain people, places, ideas. You feel an inner resonance with experiences that before might have seemed random or irrelevant. This is not chance. This is destiny beginning to reveal itself, but it doesn't appear all at once. It unfolds gradually, like a spiral, leading you deeper with each step. Each time you follow that inner signal, whether it's a whisper to leave something behind, or a nudge toward a new direction, you move closer to the life that was always meant for you. And here's the paradox: your destiny was never truly lost. It was simply waiting for you to clear the path. It was hidden behind your resistance, your distractions, your need to control. But once those barriers fall away, the path appears. Not as something you chase, but as something you remember. You begin to see that all the things you once feared losing were never part of your true path. They were detours, lessons, mirrors. They shaped you, yes, but they were never meant to define you. And once you let them go, you step into something far more powerful than success or comfort. You step into meaning. You stop asking, what do I want from life? And begin to ask, what does life want from me? That question opens a new doorway. It shifts your orientation from striving to listening, from grasping to receiving. And in that shift, you discover that destiny is not about what you do. It's about who you become. It's not about achieving some grand image, but embodying the deepest truth of who you are. So when you let go, you do not fall. You rise into alignment, into purpose, into a future that feels mysteriously familiar. You rise into a version of yourself that already existed within, waiting to be lived. This is the sacred unfolding. This is destiny, revealed not through force, but through surrender. Letting go is not a loss. It is a return to yourself, a return to the dance of the universe. And in that sacred act of release, the universe, like a long-lost friend, always answers. Not with noise, but with meaning, not with chaos, with guidance, not with fear, but with the quiet echo of your own soul saying, "Now you are ready."